Is this thing on? Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. Of course, you can follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad. And welcome to Thursday's edition of the dceu Daily. Well, it was a huge bolt out of the blue, a hammer blow last night as we found out Warner Brothers Pictures and DC had totally changed the DCEU slate, totally taking away from us the Flash movie that we were originally going to get in November and Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom in December and putting them to next year. I think the thing that really devastated me was not being able to see the Flash movie and see how this multiverse strategy is going to work out and having to wait until next year. And I think we're all frustrated about that. Even the people on Twitter going, it's no big deal. What are you getting excited about? Well, when you're a genuine fan and you're looking forward to something and something gets taken away from you and you're almost in touching distance and, then you can't see that film to next year and you wonder, hopefully, I'll be alive next year, you know what I mean? Because I'm a huge fan. I want to see these films and it's so frustrating because ultimately they knew that they had very little content available in the DCEU for 2023. Before they made the changes, they had Blue Beetle and Shazam Fury of the Gods. That wasn't going to be enough. Now, let's read the actual slate before we go on. Black Adam is going to be released October the 21st of this year. Shazam Fury of the Gods will not be released in 2023, will now be released December the 16th of this year. So that's kind of exciting in a way, like everyone said, that Black Adam and Shazam will be so close to each other, but still frustrating. Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom will not be out this year. It has been delayed till March the 17th, 2023. The Flash, June the 23rd, 2023. So we can't see the Flash this year. This is the biggest film in comic book movie history because it changes an entire franchise. So people are going to be frustrated. Now, what you want to know from me as your YouTuber is why has this happened? And basically, I've already explained it to you a few seconds back, but we'll go over it. Because they had nothing for next year apart from two movies that, although people are very excited for Blue Beetle, as I am, although people are very excited for Shazam Fury of the Gods, it wasn't going to be enough. So if you look at this logically, 3 DC movies this year and 3 DCEU movies next year makes perfect sense. The Batman, Black Adam, Shazam Fury of the Gods, it makes sense. 3 movies, 3 movies. But they should have done this from the very beginning. Because as I've already said, they already knew their slate. They already knew they weren't going to be able to make any more films to fill out 2023. Now, that's another question you want to know. Why? Well, it's because there's a merger. The new company, the new CEO, David Zaslav, wants to evaluate DC films before they go forward. So they've been told not to do anything. Now, for the smart asses that keep on going on Twitter saying, ooh, Discovery legally are not allowed to get involved with anything. Yeah, I wasn't allowed to nick money out my mum's bag when I was a little boy, but I still did it. Bad Mick, right? So people do things, right? They're so close. The government have ratified this deal. It's going to happen. In April, they pretty much take over this company, as far as I can gather. Apologise if I'm wrong. The sooner these people come in and sort all this out, the better. Because the DCEU had very little consumer confidence. And by doing this with such little notice, is astronomically bad. Because you're messing psychologically. I was looking forward to 5 DC movies this year. And psychologically now, I'm only going to get 3. And they haven't even announced what's going on with Batgirl. Batgirl is in production. It's shooting right now. Michael Uslan, one of the producers on the film, said it would be released December of this year. He didn't even know what they were playing at. He said it on a messaging board. He replied to a fan. So even Michael was either lying or the poor bastard didn't know what was going on. Again, really, really bad. You can't have Batgirl before the Flash movie. You can't. It narratively comes afterwards because Flashpoint sets up this situation with Batman, aka Michael Keaton, and this new Dick Grayson suddenly being around, kind of part of this dynamic duo with Keaton's Batman. So you can't have that movie before Flashpoint. It can't happen. So you can't sit there and tell me, oh, they had this planned all along. Now, I don't know what they were waiting for. They've also delayed Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, which stars Christopher Chamberlain. So that's another thing. So there are other casualties to this. Now, Deadline tried to say this is partially to do with COVID, and I don't know. Maybe there were certain delays, which means it's taking post-production a little bit longer. But the Flash movie finished shooting a very long time ago. You're not telling me they won't be ready by November. But as I was getting hyped all these months and saying to you guys, oh my God, 5 DC movies in 1 year. When I used to switch off the video, I used to think to myself, hang on, Mick, what about 2023? They've got nothing. And before they moved Blue Beetle, they literally had Shazam! Fury of the Gods. And I used to try and console myself and say, well, that Ta-Nehisi Coates Superman movie should start shooting, shouldn't it? That'd be available for the end of 2023. No, there is nothing. We've heard nothing about J.J. Abrams' Justice League Dark and Constantine recently. That's gone very quiet. We recently heard that Matt Reeves' Gotham PD had been shelved. And if you think this has nothing to do with the Discovery merger, you simply haven't been paying attention. So they had nothing for next year because they're not allowed to greenlight or make any more DC movies. So Blue Beetle will be the last DCEU movie that's made for a while, because I don't expect any announcents at this point. Why do you think the Batman sequel hasn't been announced? I've said this before. Wonder Woman 3 was announced just as Wonder Woman 84 was released. Why doesn't the Batman, one of the most successful DC movies since the Joker movie, what's that, 23 years ago, sorry, my maths is shit, and it's early in the morning, excuse me, but yeah, very successful movie, much more successful and embraced more by the public than Wonder Woman 84, and it hasn't had a sequel greenlit. Now, we'll get into it later on in this video because Penguin has been officially announced for HBO Max. That's great. But here in Cyprus, I don't get HBO Max. I won't even be able to see that show. Peacemaker has now been announced to air on Now TV and Sky TV in the UK. Now, that would have been great when I was living there a few weeks back. It's no good for me now because I still don't know when I can see that show legally. So HBO Max is another clusterfuck. This is another issue, of course, for Disney Plus MCU fans as well, because there's a lot of people around the world who can't see that stuff either. So that's a mess, really, as well. But that's not really just kind of resigned to WB. So I'm not going to single them out for that. But you do not rejig these things so close to when they were supposed to be released. Now, this happened last year, where Kevin Feige and Marvel Studios rejigged this year's slate. I think 1 or 2 things were moved to 2023, and I think they've got 3 movies out this year, have they? I think it's the Marvels, and it's something else, and I can't remember what it is. There's 3 movies, basically, and 4 Love and Thunder. I think there were supposed to be more movies initially. They changed their slate, basically, but they've still got a good slate. As the DCEU has. I mean, this year, if you take away the disappointment, to have the Batman, Black Adam, and Shazam! Fury of the Gods in the same year is good. But it's the psychological element that upsets the consumer, because it sends out a message of, we fucking don't know what we're doing. You just suddenly announce that you're delaying everything in the same year, And it's interesting because I've sat here before and said probably Shazam Fury of the Gods would be moved to 2022. Again, I was spot on. As I said yesterday on my live, I'm either very, very lucky or I've got a good gut feeling about things. I actually have an inside line in what's going on in the industry. I'd like to say it's the latter. And so I had a good feeling about Shazam. So on the positive note, right, I think it's pretty obvious that Henry Cavill and Gal Gadot are going to be in Shazam Fury of the Gods. I would expect Henry to get more screen time than Gal because of what test audiences said about Gal's role. I think she turns up at the end of the film, and I think I know what's going on there, because I think the new female character who's related to the evil witches or goddesses or whatever they are, I think she goes off with Diana at the end, and Diana's going to train her, and I think she actually becomes a good character, and I think that's what happens with her. So I expect to see Henry and Gal in that movie, which is really exciting, because potentially we could see Henry in Black Adam, and I don't know if this is true, but we could. Nobody knows anything different. I know that, what's his name? Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson has tried to play that down, but that doesn't mean anything. So we could actually see Henry twice. There could also be another reason for moving Shazam forward, and probably because of the Henry Cavill cameo, that would say that Zaslav and Discovery are very interested in giving Henry Cavill the sequel he deserves. So that's exciting if that's true, and we see Henry Cavill in 2 DCEU movies this year, and with the Batman, it's a celebratory year for the DCEU, right? Now, I remember last night when I was saying, when Black Adam was delayed, and they didn't announce everything, they just announced Black Adam at first. Very, very strange that they didn't just announce things at the same time. It was like when you go bowling and the Skittles only fall slowly. And I was saying to you guys, there must be something wrong with that film. What's going on? And it's weird because we've seen pictures of that film. We've seen little clips. It looks fucking amazing. But we've seen amazing trailers before. We saw amazing trailers for Justice League. And look at the pile of shit that was. So, you know, concept art and trailers and footage doesn't actually mean anything. But I like to believe that film's going to be good. So now we know that these films being moved doesn't seem to be a creative decision, because then you would have to say that Black Adam has problems, The Flash has problems, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom has problems. And Shazam Fury of the Gods is being moved forward, so obviously that hasn't got problems. That doesn't make any sense. Basically, it's nothing to do with an individual DC movie. So I did get a bit carried away last night, but there is an issue here. There have been no more DCEU movies greenlit. And that's interesting, because that creates a problem as well for the 2024 slate, if we're going to continue with the DCEU. Yes, that's what I'm alluding to, that we may never, ever get another green-lit DC Extended Universe movie in terms of this franchise we're in right now. Now, I said yesterday in my video, The State of the DCEU, after Justice League, the DCEU would have been done for me as a studio head, as a runner of a franchise, and I would have said, let's start again. Let's now find the right person, the right producer to run this franchise, who understands these comic book characters, these icons, and does the best for the fans and the mainstream audience. I would have gone out and looked for a Kevin Feige. In fact, I would have gone to Kevin Feige. A lot of people will be upset with me saying that, but I would have gone for someone who can do this thing. So the Batman stands are very lucky, because they do have their very own Kevin Feige, who happens to be a writer and director as well, and that's Matt Reeves. But the issue is right now, nothing else is being greenlit and planned. The J.J. Abrams projects, as I've already said, have gone quiet. Why? As I said, there's a merger, and they're going to come in and make their own decisions. They're going to gut Warner Brothers Pictures. This is obvious now. And you can keep on telling me it's nothing to do with Discovery, and Discovery are legally bound not to be getting involved with the running of WB. They're getting ready to come in. Zaslav made his plans as soon as he spoke to people in Hollywood and got his intel about the clusterfuck that's going on at that studio, Warner Brothers Pictures. I read you an article yesterday where the Deadline journalist tried to say, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Sorry, my friend, it's fucking broken when you take a bunch of movies that fans are excited for and just before they're going to be released, they move them. That is broken. That is broken. And you can, listen, I've done my share of shilling for WB ever since I heard about the multiverse strategy. And even though I'm desperate for the Snyderverse to be restored, I said, hey, they're all right, aren't they? We're going to get this multiverse. They're going to reboot the franchise. We're actually going to get an awesome DC Extended Universe that everyone can love. Everyone gets a place to enjoy these characters. But then they do this. It proves they cannot be trusted. Because as I say, they were fully aware that they weren't going to make enough content for cinemas within the DCEU slate for 2023. They knew they just had Shazam! Fury of the Gods. Out of desperation, they moved Blue Beetle from HBO Max into theatres. Now, my understanding was, and my theory was, that they would move Batgirl to 2023. That would be 3 DCEU movies. Very exciting. The problem is, even with having Batgirl, Shazam! Fury of the Gods, and Blue Beetle in 2023, there's nothing that can capture that summer market or even that Christmas market. It isn't enough. I mean, for me, I would have gone with it because it's better than nothing. But they decided not to do that. So they've shoved the Flash movie, the most important CBM ever in DC cinematic history, and they put it in June of next year. Now, that's a very good date because I was always a bit weirded out by this November of 2022 thing for the Flash. And I thought, well, I know that Spider-Man No Way Home, one of the most important epic, Marvel movies of all time, was put in December. So I get that. And the summer blockbuster thing isn't a thing as much as it used to be now. The Batman was out in March. Having Black Adam in June was always weird to me anyway. But it was always a bit problematic when they moved the Batman from 2021 to 2022. So that gave them another movie for 2022. But instead of, there's no one there to talk to the audience and say, right, it's COVID. Someone should have came out. Walter Hamada should have had a proper official statement, an official response saying, right, I know this is going to be very frustrating. Instead, we get The Rock on an Instagram video or a post saying, I've got some exciting news. Black Adam's going to be delayed to October. Whooping do, Dwayne. That's so exciting. I love you, dude. But that's so exciting that a fucking movie that I was looking forward to, that millions of people around the world were looking forward to, is delayed to October. So I can't watch it in June anymore. There's nothing to watch for me in terms of DC. And I thought that's what I was going to get. As I say, it's the psychological element of this thing. And that's the problem. I thought I was going to see 5 movies this year, and now I'm not. And I know full well, even though it hasn't been confirmed, that I can't see Batgirl this year either. But that's an HBO Max film, so I couldn't fucking see it anyway. And that, as I've already said, that's another piece of frustration for me. So there you have it. We don't have any control. We don't have any power. But as I say, if you don't think the reason that no more movies are being greenlit, that we're hearing very little about J.J. Abrams' DC projects, including the Ta-Nehisi Coates written Superman of Colour, or the Michael B. Jordan produced Val Zod series, if you think there's a reason we're not hearing about this and Matt Reeves' sequel hasn't been greenlit, and you should be a little bit concerned about that as well. Because basically, the Penguin series continues after the Batman. That's your sequel, isn't it? That's your sequel, potentially. So Zaslav and Discovery have got to come in. I mean, they'd have to be absolute nuts not to continue the Batman franchise. I'm not saying that. But there's no green light until these people come in, and we're working with Warner Discovery so they can make these decisions. These are the consequences of having a merger. But AT&T weren't doing that. AT&T just allowed Warner Brothers Pictures to keep on doing what they wanted. They didn't interfere. And that was a problem as well, because this is what got us to this. And all the nonsense that happened during the build-up to Zack Snyder's Justice League Snyder Cut. they didn't get involved. They didn't want to muddy the waters. But it's pretty clear that Discovery CEO David Zaslav and his company will be muddying the waters. Because since that deal's been ratified by the government, no Gotham PD. Very quiet on J.J. Abrams' DC projects. No more DCEU stuff being greenlit. And so this kind of poses another question. Are we wasting our time with the Flash movie that reboots the universe? What's going to happen to that? Are they just going to put it on and then start again and not bother continuing from it? If Zaslav comes in and says, you know what, we're not doing this, I'm going a different direction, it makes you wonder, doesn't it? Because there are no new projects being greenlit. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not angry with Zaslav and Discovery. They're right to do this. They know the toxicity that's been going on within WB Pictures, and they're going to break that company in two, that element of the studio in two, and they have to. Things need to be sorted out. And don't get me wrong. If the DCEU needs to be abolished, the DCEU needs to be abolished, as I've already said. I would have abolished it after Justice League. Once Zack Snyder was the creator and runner of the DC Extended Universe originally. It's a bit like what they did with his Justice League movie, try and turn it into something else. Now they're taking his DC franchise and trying to turn it into something else. And up till now, I've been very positive about that because it sounded like a very ambitious, interesting idea, making these different Earths in the multiverse part of DCEU canon. But I've always also said, will they get the execution right? We're going to have to wait till next year if we ever get to see the fucking Flashpoint movie. I'm sure we will. But again, we have to ask the question, is Zaslav and Discovery going to go through with this multiverse strategy after the Flash? Or are we just going to see these movies? Are they going to make a few $100 million, not many people coming in for them, and then they're going to come up with something else and make announcements? It's my guess that we're going to get major announcements when Zaslav comes in next month and when it's legal for him to talk about it. It's not legal yet, as I've already said. But if you think they're not there and not making decisions, and they're not the ones who shelved Gotham PD, and they're not the reason J.J. Abrams is quiet, and there's nothing from Ta-Nehisi Coates' Superman movie, because clearly Zaslav and Discovery have decided for a change of plan and a change of direction. So now, where does this leave Zack Snyder's Snyderverse and restoring the Snyderverse? It leaves it in a very good position, because I've always believed that Zaslav and Discovery were going to restore it automatically as soon as they come in. When they were doing their pitch and talking about this, they had boards, and one of the pictures they had up was of the Snyderverse, or Zack Snyder's Justice League, whatever, right? So to have that there, they have interest in that franchise, or it could have just been a picture there. But it's unlikely. They're restoring the Snyderverse. But we have to have a deeper conversation now, because ultimately, they may not just be restoring the Snyderverse, they may allow Zack Snyder to return to run this franchise again. That sounds very unlikely, doesn't it? And it's something that I always thought was unlikely. I thought more they'd just give him a corner somewhere. But if they don't do the multiverse strategy, so I believe that Zack Snyder will have a big position within DC again. I'm not concerned about that. Zack Snyder's made some very, very good movies. They may not be to everybody's taste, but we could be going through a scenario where there's no more DCEU anymore. There's no interconnection anymore, and they just make movies. So Superman would have his own franchise on his own, right? Maybe there'd be a separate Justice League franchise. It would all just be classic Warner Brothers kind of making films for film's sake and artistic sake, rather than just a big buck. I think that's more kind of to DC's strengths. I still think if someone smart was involved with the DCEU from the beginning, we could have had an amazing shared universe. It could be because of the success of the Batman, and it's a self-contained universe, they feel this could be the way to go. I am not opposed to that. how do I feel about the DCEU in its future? I don't feel very positive because it didn't have any consumer confidence, right? They're now moving these films when they could have just put these dates. These dates, there was nothing stopping them from putting these dates out there. Why would you commission 5 years? Sorry, say that again. Why would you commission 5 movies in 1 year when you only had one cinematic movie before they moved Blue Beetle for 2023? Why would you do that? It doesn't make any sense. Did they just say to themselves, oh, I know, we'll worry about that when we get to 2023? Did Emmerich and the gang get up yesterday morning and thought, oh my God, we got nothing in 2023. We can't just have Shazam and Blue Beetle. We've got to move these fucking movies. Quick, quick, quick. Press release. Of course, the media are going to spin this and certain people are going to spin this. But why? Why isn't there no films for 2023 to go along with Shazam and Blue Beetle? Where is Tanashi Coates Superman or any fucking DCEU film? Why aren't they expanding this? Because Warner Brothers Pictures are not free to do so. So there could be, you could blame COVID a little bit because the Batman crossing over to 2022 instead of 2021 is an issue. But these are issues they should have dealt with before. This was an issue before, as soon as they moved the movie. They had 5 movies in 1 year, or they made us think that. Okay, right, without Batgirl, there's still 3 DC movies in 1 year. And that's fine. It's fine if they did it from the beginning. But as I already said, psychologically, it's gutting. Especially when you think, I'm going to watch a Flashpoint multiverse movie that changes everything in November this year. And now I have to wait till June. June! Psychologically, that messes you up. And I'm a fan. So they're messing with a fan who supported them, who's defended them against a multitude of accusations. And this is what we get for our loyalty. And they can't be trusted. And it just proves that Zaslav and Discovery must come in and destroy Warner Brothers Pictures, restart a DC franchise, and definitely restore the Snyderverse. I believe all these things are going to happen. But finally, on this very subject, I would say, with no more DCEU movies being greenlit, this tells me that the DCEU's days are numbered. And finally today, a bit of good news as Colin Farrell's and Matt Reeves' Penguin series, show run by Lauren LaFranc, has been greenlit. So, this is what Lauren had to say. Honoured and excited. This is going to be wild. So, brilliant stuff here. So, they actually confirm it. That's no surprise. But, I mean, in an evening of bad news yesterday, this was much more like it. HBO Max orders the Penguin limited series as the Batman clocks 301 million plus at the global box office. In what comes as no surprise given the running 301 million global grossing success of the Batman, HBO Max has given a straight-to-series order to the Pick spin-off series The Penguin, which will see Colin Farrell reprising his villainous role from the Pick as one of Gotham's legendary kingpins. As the Batman director Matt Reeves told us on Deadline's Hero Nation podcast, Penguin picks up where the movie left off in regards to Penguin. He said the original Batman spin-off series he conceived centering around a corrupt cop in events preceding the movie is no longer moving forward at HBO Max. Sarah Albury, head of original content, HBO Max, said, "We are thrilled to bring audiences a new version of this iconic DC character that they have never seen before. It is incredible to be working with Matt, Dylan and Lauren on continuing this story and to see Colin take his already exceptional performance in the Batman to the next level." Matt Reeves said, "Colin exploded off the screen as the Penguin in the Batman, and having the chance to thoroughly explore the inner life of that character on HBO Max is an absolute thrill. Dylan and I are so excited to work with Lauren in continuing Oz's story as he grabs violently for power in Gotham." Lauren LaFranc added, I have long been a fan of the world of the Batman, and Matt's film is such a powerful and bold entry into the canon. I'm excited and humbled to continue telling stories in the grimy world of Gotham City, and what better excuse to channel my inner villain than to tell the story of Oswald Cobblepot. I am thrilled to work with Colin, Matt, Dylan, Six and Idaho Warners and HBO Max as we work to bring this story to the screen. This world that Matt Reeves created for the Batman is one that warrants a deeper gaze through the eyes of Oswald Cobblepot, Farrell said. I couldn't be more excited about continuing this exploration of Oz as he rises through the darkened ranks to become the Penguin. Will be good to get him back on the streets of Gotham for a little madness and a little mayhem. It was previously announced that LaFranc penned the pilot. The Penguin is based on the characters created for DC by Bob Kane with Bill Finger. The limited drama series is produced by Reeves, Six and Idaho Productions and Dylan Clark Productions in association with Warner Brothers Television. So, some good news in a day of not so good news. We knew this was happening, but it looked like Warner Brothers kind of PR were peppering us with so much information, and ultimately they thought, well, they already know this is happening, but we better put that out there again. And obviously, also, let me just go back to all these changes in the slate. You notice how they waited, right, until the Batman was released and there was a feel-good factor with DC fans, and then they let us have it, hoping we would just say, oh, well, they've given us the Batman, we can't be too angry with them. Of course we can. And of course, they never considered moving the Batman to next year, right? Because that's a movie that had consumer confidence even before anyone saw that movie. So don't take anything for granted right now. Until Warner Discovery is formed and Zaslav officially appoints his CEO of that studio, and he will be a Bob Iger figure, maybe even Bob Iger. Get ready. Major changes are coming to this studio, and major changes are coming to the DC live action universe. And no matter what you think or what you say, nothing is stopping this train of change coming. And it's the best thing that any DC fan could hope for. But unfortunately, it's also frustrating that we have to wait for certain films. We have to wait and see what the future is for the DCEU, because right now, it's not looking good. This has been the DCEU Daily here with me on Movies TV Mad. I'm Mick, your host with the most. Just ask your girlfriends and your wives. Like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you never miss this perfection. And I'll see you again later on with even more videos. Until then, goodbye, au revoir, auf Wiedersehen.